我々の地球は永遠という名の海に漂い、20世紀のあけぼのの後、変革の風が吹き始めた。そして激しい嵐が訪れた。原始の時代の幕開けであった。我々人類はあらゆる生き物を殺戮する恐るべきエネルギー兵器を創造した。空中に炸裂しためくるめくきらめきは、その後何者かが空中に出現する兆しであったのかもしれない。人類の文明が始まって以来、我々のみが大宇宙の住人ではなく、何者かが我々を見つめていることに気づかぬまま、我々は星を見つめてきた。だが今歴史は変わろうとしている。1952年7月20日、首都ワシントン上空に奇怪な発光物体群が出現した。ホワイトハウスをはじめ首都の多くの市民がこの奇妙な光体群を目撃して仰天した。アメリカ軍当局の高官たちも目撃し、その光体たちのメッセージを理解した。彼らはすでに異星人の来訪についても知っていたのである。軍当局はその事態から一般市民の注目をそらすための緊急会議を招集。その日から UFO については国家の最高機密とすることが決定された。この事態から大衆の関心をそらしたのは陸軍情報部のジョン・サンフォード少将だった。
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
その日から今世紀最大の秘密隠蔽政策が始まった。だがその発端はもっと以前にまで遡る。最初の原子爆弾実験が行われた後、環境や人体にいかなる影響を与えるかを見るため、さらにテストが繰り返された。長期にわたって影響が残ることはこの時点ではまだ知られていなかった。ここニューメキシコ州にはロズウェルという小さな町があり、その町の近くに陸軍基地がある。1947年7月2日、牧場経営者ビル・ブレーゼルは大地に激突した奇妙な円盤型の乗り物を発見した。直ちに基地から陸軍部隊が駆けつけ、広大な地域に散乱した残骸物を発見するや、付近一帯を立ち入り禁止にした。彼らはその乗り物から投げ出された4体の異星人の死体を発見した。この事件によって宇宙から来訪する UFO の存在を初めて確信し、異星人が我々の理解を超えたテクノロジーを持っていることに脅威を感じたのである。ロズウェルの基地はアメリカで唯一の核攻撃部隊である第509爆撃飛行大隊の基地でもある。 UFO の回収作業を指揮した陸軍のジェシー・マーセル少佐は、地元の新聞のために情報を用意するよう陸軍広報将校のウォルター・ホートに命令した。
He told me to prepare a release with basically the information that he gave me over the phone. When it was done, to take it into community and deliver it, hand deliver it to the four news media we had in Roswell at that time, which is what I did.
情報はロズウェル・デイリーレコード紙に掲載され、地元のラジオ局でも報道の準備にかかった。しかし経営者ジャド・ロバーツはその報道を差し止められた。
The question that we ran into is the very next morning, some friendly person, probably from Clinton Anderson's office, called us from Washington and said, we understand that you have some information, and we want to assure you that if you release it on this matter, because it's not supposed to be released, it's very possible that your license could be in jeopardy, and so we suggest that you not do it. And he said, when I mean in jeopardy, like maybe 3 days.
元作戦将校ロバート・シャーキーは UFO の残骸をロズウェル陸軍基地に運び込むところを目撃した。
They came in the front door, straight down the hallway, and right out onto the ramp to climb into the airplane. And these were the people that were carrying parts of the crashed flying saucer at that time, UFO today, that I got to see. And that was the only thing I got to see. And it was very short, very quick. Colonel Blanchard, in order to get out of their way, had backed into the doorway of the ops office. And I stepped up to him and I said, Colonel, turn sideways. I want to see too.
ペンタゴンからの指令でトーマス・ジェファーソン・デュボーズ大佐とレイミー准将は気候観測用気球が墜落したという話を捏造した。
But we used that in order to assuage the curiosity of the press.
破損した UFO は調査研究のためライト・パターソン空軍基地へと空輸された。そのパイロットは沈黙を守っていたが新聞で暴露され初めて妻に詳しく打ち明けた。
Here were these was this newspaper, and he said, well, I guess now that they're putting in the paper, I can tell you about this. I wanted to tell you for years. He said, I want you to read this article because it's a true story. And I not only know that it's true, but I'm the pilot who flew the wreckage of the UFO to Dayton, Ohio.
ライト・パターソン空軍基地はアメリカでも科学技術設備が最も完備された研究センターである。ロズウェル UFO の残骸は分析のためこの基地に搬入されトルーマン大統領の直接指揮下に置かれた。 CIA を隠れ蓑に使ってトルーマンは UFO のあらゆる情報収集及び分析研究のためマジェスティック12なる極秘組織を作った。ロズウェル墜落事件に続く UFO 事件に対処できるように特別グループが結成されたのである。ウェンデル・スティーブンス大佐は空軍の技術情報将校であったが現在は UFO 研究家として知られている。
Now having an extraterrestrial vehicle and some bodies in their hands didn't know when the next one would come down, where they came from, what they were going to do about it. There were a lot of unanswered questions. And the United States was in a turmoil at the time administratively because we were shifting from a war economy and a military-industrial command structure to a civilian structure. So the military was still dominant, and they wanted to keep control of this until they knew what was happening. So they created, and remember, General Marshall was our Secretary of State at the time. He was a five-star general. These people selected certain representatives from the military-industrial complex that they controlled, generals and admirals and certain scientists that worked with the military and worked with industrial planning. These men were designated as a task force to take charge of any event that followed. And one did. Almost a year later, on the 25th of March of 1978, the next one came down, 1948, the next one did crash, and it came down under observation by radar, so that we knew where it landed at the time that it struck the ground, and a helicopter was over it in less than an hour. It reported what it observed, and the plan generated by these people from the military-industrial complex after the Roswell crash was immediately put into place. All of the generals and admirals and advisors and scientists were contacted and ordered to proceed to a base in Colorado, where they were picked up and driven to the crash site. Now all of these men have gone to the scene to see for themselves what an alien vehicle looks like, and they were going to advise General Marshall directly, who was controlling everything from remote position from telephones, on how to proceed. And when an operation is that big, you can't cover everything up. We discovered that the owner of the property where the vehicle came down was arrested in his house with his family, and they were kept in the house for 4 days, not allowed to go outside or anything. All the roads in the area were blocked. All access was closed. People that lived close enough to know something about it were kept in their houses. Now, if it never happened, then this evidence wouldn't exist. But now we are finding solid evidence that something strange did happen and that these events actually took place. Then we found people who observed the recovery of the craft from a distance, that saw the task force moving across off roads over country to a secure military facility at Los Alamos. And with these leads, we were able to turn up other witnesses, all of whom had been sworn to secrecy by their superiors at the time they participated in these events. And only a few of them would talk to us, and only on condition that they not be identified because of their vulnerability. What happens in a case of violation of security oaths of this nature, they could lose all pay and allowances due or ever to become due. They could be imprisoned. They could be fined a lot of things that none of them could stand.
UFO の隠蔽政策は軍部とマジェスティック12の関係を深め、より緊密なものとした。時の経過とともにマジェスティック12は強力な組織へと発展した。バージル・アームストロングは元 CIA の情報将校で高度の機密活動に従事、大佐の階級で引退した。
I received documents which said that a UFO had landed in the middle of White Sands, New Mexico proving grounds, and that this object was inert, was under surveillance, and would be kept under surveillance until they could determine whether it was hostile or friendly. It later turned out that it was friendly in that the occupants were dead, and when we got aboard there were 5 bodies. The bodies were diminutive in size, in other words 3.5 feet. The largest one was just under 4 feet. 2 of them were obviously the commanding officers because 2 of them wore epaulets on their shoulders. Later turns out that they were all male. When we flew them back to Wright-Patterson, of course, the examination, physical examination, and the autopsy, of course, revealed that they were indeed all male.
数人の目撃体験者の証言によると、異星人は目が大きく、鼻と口が小さく、平均身長は1メートル20センチ、体毛は全くない。
Now, consider, if you will, the position of the United States government at this time. They proudly thought of themselves as the most powerful nation on Earth, having recently produced the atomic bomb and won World War II with it. They had built a jet aircraft that exceeded the speed of sound in flight, or would, in October of '47. They had built bombers with intercontinental range that would carry weapons of enormous destruction. Now, imagine what it was like for these same leaders, all of whom had witnessed the panic of the Orson Welles broadcast in the War of the Worlds in 1938. Thousands of Americans panicked at a realistically presented invasion of Earth. But imagine their horror as they actually viewed the dead bodies of the real aliens. Imagine their shock as they tried to determine how these saucers were powered and could discover no part even remotely similar to components they were familiar with. No cylinders, no pistons, no propellers, no vacuum tubes. It's only when you fully understand the overwhelming helplessness the government was faced with in the summer of 1947 can you comprehend their perceived need for a total, thorough, and sweeping cover-up to include the use of deadly force.
1945年からの5年間で一般市民からの UFO 目撃報告は増大した。中には異星人と接触したというものも多数あった。それによると彼らは人類が抱える諸問題の解決と方向転換を警告するために来訪したという。我々はコンタクトする限られた数の人々に忠告と導きを与える目的で地球を訪れている。我々がコンタクトを取るのは程度の高い宇宙の法に対する意識と理解力を持ち合わせている人々である。君たちの社会は我々の存在を知る水準にはまだ達していない。 しかし君たちの文明の発展に従い我々はベールを脱いでいくだろう。君たちの死生者は我々の有する知識を兵器に応用する目的で我々の同胞を捉えていることを君たちにひた隠しにしている。これは到底許されることではない。ドルーマンは UFO の墜落事故で捉えた生きた異星人をトップシークレットとし、当時どんどん増加していた UFO 目撃事件を大衆から隠し、 UFO などバカバカしいと思わせる目的で空軍部内にブルーブックと呼ばれる調査機関を創設した。天文学者のアレン・ハイネック教授はアメリカ空軍の UFO 教育プログラムにおける天文学的アドバイザーであった。
And I know the job they had. They were told not to excite the public. Don't rock the boat. And I saw it in my own eyes happen that whenever a case happened that they could explain, which is quite a few, they made point of that and let that out to the media. Things that the cases that were very difficult to explain, they would jump handsprings to keep the media away from it. For they had a job to do, to, whether rightfully or wrongly, to keep the public from getting excited.
生きた異星人は1948年の UFO 墜落事故で捕獲された。彼は1年間地球人とコミュニケーションすることを拒否した。彼は地球外生物学的存在物という英語の頭文字を取ってイーブと名付けられた。後になって彼はやっと重い口を開き始め、故郷の惑星についていろいろと語った。イーブは大きな水晶体を持っていて、それによって同種族のものと交信ができた。さらに彼は過去と未来を見渡せる驚くべき能力も持ち合わせていた。彼は大宇宙を最高の生き物であると信じ、彼の種族は戦争もなく調和を保って暮らしており、ほとんどあらゆる病気を撲滅したと語った。彼らはおよそ800歳まで生きることができ、そのテクノロジーは人類よりはるかに進歩している。関係者たちは水晶体を通して見せられたあらゆることに驚嘆した。イーブは地球より何千キロも離れた軌道上の宇宙船と交信できた。その宇宙船は我々の想像をはるかに超えた大宇宙の深淵にまで到達できるとイーブは語った。また我々が考えるような制御システムを持たず、心で念じるマインドコントロールとバイオコンピューターとの組み合わせによって操縦されるという。彼の故郷の惑星は全てが自動機能システムからなり、それには一切の労働力を必要とせず、全てセンターのコントロールシステムによって管理されている。それらを稼働させる動力源は大宇宙に存在する無尽蔵のエネルギーである。彼らは人類のような政府機関を持たず、全ては彼らの中の賢い長老グループによって統治されている。また彼らは通貨制度を持たず、必要なものは完全に公平な共同体組織から供給される。イーブは以上のように語ったのである。異星人の要望で1954年アイゼンハワー大統領との会談が執り行われた。それは極秘の場所で厳重な機密保持のもとに行われた。この会談では異星人の地球滞在許可をめぐる交渉が行われたが、地球は彼らを受け入れる準備がまだ不足だとアイゼンハワーは語ったと言われる。
Eisenhower witnessed an alien demonstration of technology and power at Muroc Dry Lake, which is now called Edwards Air Force Base. I believe we made a deal, and the deal was that in exchange for super technology, super weapons technology, we would agree to ignore the abductions that were going on. He made it more military-oriented than, say, a civilian president would have. And it's this, I think, that has let his actions let the real power of the executive office slip through the hands of the president into MJ-12. The President of the United States does not have a high enough clearance to know the whole thing. And it's interesting to note that above top secret, there's 38 levels of clearances. Eisenhower's the last president to have a full briefing on the alien problem. There was a disdain of elected officials throughout the intelligence and military communities, and they just didn't like the elected officials. So every president since then has not had high enough clearance to know the whole problem. Now they know there's aliens, they know we've recovered saucers, and they know that we're trying to get technology. But there are certain other things which probably only about 25 people on the face of this earth know.
我々の同胞が地球を訪れた時、我々はこう打ち明けた。我々は技術的には発達したが、テクノロジーの進化しすぎで情緒面を置き忘れてしまったと。そしていかなる情緒本能も失って愛、希望、喜びなどの感情を喪失し、その結果機械的な種族となり果てて存在理由を失ってしまった。我々には人類の助けが必要だ。地球には豊かな情感が生きていることを知り来訪した。我々が情緒あふれる種族になるためにはどうしても君たちの遺伝物質 DNA が必要なのだ。感情の喪失は自ら気づくことなく静かに段階的にそして確実に進行する。そして気がついた時では遅すぎる。情緒はあらゆる生き物が持つ偉大なる贈り物であり、それなしでは生きる意味を持たないことに我々は気づいたのだ。我々は喜びや愛や美を感じたい。そして幸せや悲しみを味わい、泣くことさえしたいのだ。愛や友情、いたわりや思いやりの精神を我々の世界に取り戻すため、どうか我々の願いを聞き届けてほしい。
It is rather problematic about talking or analyzing possible reasons for extraterrestrial visitors. What is the purpose? What are their intentions? If we speculate about the motives of extraterrestrials, we can only do it from a human point of view. However, we must really accept also the possibility that extraterrestrials are, from their mental makeup, from their psychological makeup, so different that motives cannot be compared. They may be completely unemotional in investigating human civilization. They may have no emotions like pity. They may have no emotions like happiness. So the speculation is difficult.
地球に近づくに従い、辺りは自由空間でなくなり、船内の装置があらゆる活動をモニターし始める。
I happened to see flying saucer on several occasions on the radar. I even intercepted with 4 jets in 55, and it was clear to me that the saucers we intercepted could hear what I told the pilots, because they reacted on my instructions to the pilots. It was one day when one of my people in the radar called me and said, Major, I was captain at that, Captain, we have something on the screen which passes with a speed of 18,000 kilometers per hour. Impossible. Nothing could fly with that speed. I went out there, yes. They were passing with 18,000 kilometers per hour. All of a sudden, after some while, they did not pass anymore. They were stationary around the field. And they came and they left without we could see it. All of a sudden they were there. All of a sudden when the sweep came around, they were gone. I contacted the operations officer and the station commander. They both came out and they wouldn't believe me. I said, give me 4 aircraft and I'll intercept them. Okay. Sometimes there were about 20 objects around the field, and sometimes we were down to a few. It was fog. And therefore, a lot of people afterwards said, oh, it was inversion, but it was not. It's proven afterwards it could not be inversion, which is a meteorological phenomenon. So at 11 o'clock, I had 4 jets at the runway, and at 11 o'clock, the fork lifted so we could take off. And I ordered the 4 jets to take off. In that moment, there was 12 objects around the field. And when I said you are cleared for takeoff to intercept unidentified flying objects, 10 of them went away. Right when the sweep came back, there was only 2 left. One 10 miles north of the field, one 15 miles south of the field. I sent the 2 aircraft to the north and the 2 aircraft to the south. 2 aircraft to the north came first, and I said, your boogie, which is the object, is 12 o'clock straight ahead. 12 o'clock, distance 5 miles, altitude unknown. Do we have it in sight? Gone. Came the next one. When it came up, I said, your boogie is 12 o'clock, range 5 miles, altitude unknown. Do we have it in sight? Gone. So it was clear they could hear what I said.